This is part 2 of our lab for this week. We're going to be talking about gradients and how to apply them to this text. Also making the Captain America shield. So for the background right here, I'm going to draw in a blue background. Drop this guy in here and pop it in the back. Actually, before I pop it in the back, how about we add some color to it? Just go over here to fill and click one of these default gradients, which you'll see right here. Then go down to the gradient options button. This might be different in depending on what version of Illustrator you're in. The older versions, you might have had it gone to the gradient window, gradient panel. You could also just click this button right here. See this little guy? And that would have turned a gradient on. The bottom line is I got a gradient. That's what I wanted. So I'm going to mix myself a blue that I think looks good. Might be similar to this blue over here. Doesn't have to be the same though. So I'm going to double click this stop. And I like to switch over to HSB when I see my color picker pop up right here. I switch over to not, I don't use swatches. I just go and click here. And mix the color I want. Really, I want a blue, so I just highlight down here, figure out what blue I want. I want blue's not looking too bad, and I can adjust the hue and the saturation of that blue until I have it where I want it. Don't pay attention to the black part, just pay attention to the blue. And until we get the blue where we want it. Yeah, that's pretty good blue. I'm going to say OK to that. And here's my trick. I'm going to hold down the Alt key. Hear that? And make a copy of this stop. Then drag this black stop out. Just drag it straight down. This blue stop, I'm going to double click it. Again, choose HSB. And make it a little bit darker. Just like that. That looks pretty good. Now what I want to do is I want to grab my gradient tool. And I'm going to click and adjust the direction of this gradient. So here we go. Let's see if we can get it to move. Yep, lighter at the top, darker at the bottom, just like that. Nice subtle gradient. And now, since that's done, I'll send it to the back. So arrange and send to back, and there we have it. The text here, I want one big gradient on top of all of it. At this point, I don't mind grouping it. So I can select all these and group them. I don't have to for this to work, but I'm going to press Control G, make a group out of this. I'll get rid of this spacer here. In this case, I'm just going to click on that standard gradient again. I'll go to Fill, and I'll click on this standard gradient. And I'll show you a little trick of mine. This is just one way that you could handle the situation. Yes, I could make a gray stop at the end of this right now, but I don't want to. All I want to do is this: back up, grab the gradient tool, and as long as you understand that how gradients work, you can start and stop in the middle of the gradient. So it can get kind of darker near the bottom. So I want it white at the top and then a light gray at the bottom, and that should do it, just like that. Now if you want that little shadow that's behind the text, it's not necessary. This has to do with another week, but I think it does look pretty cool. You can go to the effects panel, stylize, and choose drop shadow. Press preview and you'll be able to see what that looks like. And you can change the direction of it. It's offset a little bit to the left, which is fine with me. Maybe I'll shrink it down a little bit. Mind you, this does take up quite a bit of RAM on your computer. My computer is not that fast, so struggling a little bit. And you can always take the blur down as well. I think that's a little bit high. But at the end of the day, that looks pretty good for me, so I'm going to press OK. I'm happy enough. And there you go. See how it's looking very similar to what's happening over here. Now the shield is a different story. That's something that I'm going to try to quickly make. going to use the Ellipse Tool, hold down Shift and draw a perfect little circle. And here's the process I'm going to go through. I'm just going to have a series of strokes here to start off with. I'll use a white stroke. There we go. And I'm going to press Control C, Control F for paste in front, and then Alt and Shift to shrink this from the middle. Then again, Control C, copy, Control F, paste in front, then Alt and Shift, which will make this conform to the middle, just like that. And then one more time, Control C, Control F, then Alt and Shift, and then again, we'll go like this. There's a little bit of guesstimating going on, but I know I want this to be red. So I'm going to go to my swatches panel underneath fill here, just click a red. And I know I want this to be white. So I'll choose white. Sorry, I want this to be white. I don't really need a stroke on it. I want this to be red, the same red. And I want this to be blue. This blue will do. Not that this to be blue. I didn't have it selected. This to be blue. And all these have white strokes applied to them. So I'm going to select every one of these. Go over here and click on No Stroke, which looks a little better. Now I'm going to go grab the star tool. Here's the star tool. And pull one of these. Just draw a star out here. I'm holding down the space bar and not letting go of my mouse button while I draw this until it looks like it's about right in the middle of this. That should work. Let go, and I'm going to use the eyedropper tool this time to select this white right here. And there you have it. If I select all these at the same time, I could use the align panel to make sure that this is actually centered. I want to press Control G once I center it. There we have it, centered. I'm going to shrink it down a little bit. So everything's grouped. I've got it right here. You might be wondering, how do we make the gradient look cool? Well, there's a couple different ways to do this. I'm going to use a real simple method. From this point, you press Control C and Control F to grab the background. Then bring that to the front. Right click, arrange, bring to front. Then you want to find a gradient fill. Click over here, choose that black and white gradient fill. Then go to opacity, click that, and set this to multiply so the shield has a shadow. Then adjust the direction of that shadow. Make sure that your fill is in the front. Grab the gradient tool, which you learned about this week, and we'll put the shadow at the bottom of the shield so it gets a little darker near the bottom. That looks pretty good. Now the last step would be to put a drop shadow behind the shield. So I'm going to select all this with the marquee, hold down Shift and deselect the background, and for the last time group the shield as one big group. On that group I'll apply the effect, stylize, and drop shadow. Press preview, should be the same as the shadow above, and say OK. And there you have it.